Shalom. Call hello, Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathens that look like the heathens. And to the Akwath that are listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And the narrative that has been pushed on who the Israelites are, it shatters and breaks a little more every day. So eventually they're gonna have to stop saying things like what you're reading on the screen, black and African, and that whole sort of thing, because once again, you know, we're looking at a brown-skinned man call himself black. He doesn't have black skin, all right? There are Hispanics that look just like him in different parts of South America and in Mexico and Brazil and in Colombia, you know, Dominican Republic, all right? If he spoke with a Spanish accent, you know, Cubans, you know, he doesn't look that much different from one of my favorite fighters, Yoel Romero, the Soldier of God. That's my man's, all right? He doesn't, and the truth be said is that Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the same people, all right? And the Bible and history proves it if you actually read it and understand it. You know, not to even mention that they all have, for the most part, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying this as a doctrine, but I am going to say it as a physical fact. All right, as a physical fact, not as a biblical fact. But there are certain characteristics in our bodies that only our people have. Now, granted, some people that are not our people will have them only because of the intermixing and mingling. But there are some cases where like, for example, I was talking about shovel teeth at camp one time, and there was an Edomite. No, he wasn't even an Edomite. Oh, can't remember if he was Northern Kingdom or if he was an Edomite. But nevertheless, there was a dentist that happened to be standing there as we didn't know he was a dentist. But as we were, you know, teaching, and I started talking about shovel teeth, you know, and there's certain physical markers that a so-called Negro had that an African doesn't have. And it turns out that the so-called Native American and the so-called Hispanic also has those same genetic markers, and that's the shovel teeth. And the shovel tooth is that tooth, that pointed tooth that they call canine teeth. Well, on the Israelites, what has come because they killed so many of us, and they had our bodies, our bones, and our skeletons to study and observe, they noticed that we all have a ridge or a bump behind those pointed canine teeth. You're either going to have one on both teeth. I have one on both teeth. Or you're going to have just one. Another characteristic was the big toe being longer than the big toe on your foot. That's another telltale sign. And then the third marker was the crooked pinky finger. At the tip, your pinky finger kind of bent inwards toward the rest of your fingers. All right. Now, they'll admit this about Native Americans, but they will not admit it about Negroes. All right. But it turns out that the Negroes have those. Africans don't. White, so-called white people and the other heathens don't. With, you know, that canine teeth in their mouth is smooth behind them. And, you know, I don't know why the Lord did that. And the only reason we know is because of the murder and atrocities that were done against Esau, Edom. And I came across that information from a dude who's no longer even in the truth, you know. He was the first one and you know, and I did some research on it, and then I was like, damn, this should. And then I just started asking every Israelite that I came across, and it turns out that for the most part, they all have them. And then that dentist confirmed it. All right, and I'm not shocked that this is so, because I can only imagine certain, you know, some of the, you know, the things that they've hidden from us. Because we're dealing with Esau, Edom here. But this is Deuteronomy 7:6. And it says, for thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy power. And Yahweh thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So we're special people. We are. It only makes sense that the Lord will put, certain markers on us to, just saying, because the angels are going to be able to identify us regardless of whatever when it comes to time for them to separate the tares from the wheat. And once again, some of our people that are scattered are not going to have these markers, so you can't use those markers as a definite sign. Yeah, I know I'm an Israelite. I just found it to be interesting, and thought I'd share it. But the fact is that a lot of us do have those. And they're aware of it, and they don't really like to talk about it medically. And I've noticed that when you try to research this information that I'm sharing with you, a lot of it has been Salakia. A lot of it has been removed from the internet, as many other things that we used to use. A lot of certain books and imagery that we would use to prove certain points. All right. But this video that this guy, he's talking about the Red Summer in Chicago. So I'm going to let a little bit of it play. All right. Because prior to integration, in the Americas in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, there were so-called black towns all over America, hundreds of them that were thriving, that were doing well. And these people didn't have degrees, but yet these towns were also doing a lot better than their white counterparts. And after World War I, when a lot of the soldiers came back, that anger really rose in Esau Edom, the so self-proclaimed white man, because these soldiers had come back, and many of them had been overseas killing white men. And they were coming back, and they were using their soldier earnings to purchase land and stuff like that. And they kind of showed you that in the movie Rosewood. If you've never seen it, I highly suggest that you watch it with Ving Rhames, because that movie kind of depicts exactly what I just mentioned. He was a soldier who had just come back from fighting overseas and killing white men, and he had a little bit of money, and he was coming to buy plots and acres of land. And they didn't want Jake to be thriving, so that was the summer. Then I believe Rosewood was a part of that Red Summer destruction. Like I said, hundreds of towns across America, black settlements, were doing well. And guess what? There were no gangbangers. There was no baby mamas and baby daddies. Families were still together. All right? Children were being raised. And there was, and they were thriving. There was houses and lands to pass on to their children, to their family members. All right? It was there. And along came segregation, as I'm going to play a clip from Dick Gregory. They took away segregation. And, a lot of Edomites were angry, but they didn't understand that the upper class Edomites, the ones who are orchestrating all this, they wanted that integration so that they can implement their plans to destroy Jake, and that's exactly what they did. Because when we were segregated, we were thriving. All right? And so they implemented redlining and all these things that destroyed us as a people. As a matter of fact, let's play that clip now with Dick Gregory.
Play with that if you want. Liberation is close to the universal God. Education, any fool can put that book together.
That's right.
And y'all can sit there with all your PhDs. Oh, George Washington didn't beat up the damn British for the right to build a college. They was getting liberated. Then once you liberate, you build a college to what you like it to be, not what some white folks that's sending the money want it to be. And now it's catching up with you. Now it's catching up with you.
Yeah, he's exactly right, because a degree is a portion of knowledge. We, through the understanding of the Bible, have 360 degrees of knowledge. They have BAs, masters, and PhDs. They have a degree of knowledge. We have all the knowledge. All right. I forget which president it was. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said that a thorough understanding of the Bible is better than any degree that can be gotten at any university, and it was an absolute truth. All right, to have understanding of who and what we are, to have the understanding of the Lord, and have the understanding of who the nations really are. All right, and the things that were done to our people prove that the curses fell upon us. That's why we went through what we went through. As a matter of fact, let me grab. I'm already in Deuteronomy. Let's just shoot to 28 real quick. 28 and 15, and it reads, But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes. That means keeps all the laws. Not just remember, the 10 Commandments is a shorthand version of 613 laws. All right. And the only one that was done away with, we could say 612, was the law of blood sacrifice, because Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly, called Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai became that blood sacrifice. So we didn't need to do that one thing, but we had to keep everything else. All right. And it says, and we didn't do it. And it says, which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And that's what has happened. Something that Mr. Gregory doesn't understand. All right. Though he's speaking a very powerful truth, he doesn't understand that, because his generation, he comes from that generation of people who were children and young people when the things that I'm talking about happened, or he came along shortly after them. So it was fresh in the minds of the people. That's what this whole woke thing was about. All right. Being awake, that you were, woke to the fact that the government is plotting on you, that these Edomites are plotting on you, the so-called white man is plotting on you to find a way to destroy you and keep you on the bottom. You have to understand there's an ancient hatred between Esau, Edom, and Jacob. And it's not black and white, it's actually red and brown, because once again, people will call Mr. Gregory a black man, but Mr. Gregory is brown. He's not black at all, just like the other guy. The background behind him is black. His skin is brown. There's a complete visual difference between black and brown. But yet people ignorantly, after being told and explained to the wicked and dirtiness of the word black, there's nothing beautiful about black. It literally means dirty, unclean, without light, void of light, understanding, untrustworthy, dark, sinister. And then so you put people behind it. So you are dark, dirty, sinister, untrustworthy, nasty people. And then you embrace it that like that's who you are. All right? Dick Gregory didn't tell you were the Israelites. Abba Bivens did. At the water for the Lord, bringing him to the light. Because if they speak not with this, matter of fact, let's grab that. Because though Dick Gregory has been one of the more positive leaders of our people, or voices of our people, he still only have a portion of understanding. Right? This is Isaiah 8:20, and it reads, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them. Right? If they're not speaking according to what's in these scriptures, there's no light in them. Let's play that again. Because he says a mouthful in a very short period of time.
Reason we so messed up, never before have there been anyone that went through what we went through, slavery, discrimination, the whole thing.
That's right. And then you got another people claiming to be the people of the Lord. All right. With a situation that lasted, only a few years versus, 500 million people between the Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans. You're looking at 500 to 600 million people. All right. 5 to 600 million people that died. All right. Were brutalized for 400 plus years, 500 the slave trade started in 1492. All right. The first slaves that got put on slave ships were many of the Moors and Morenos that when Spain and Portugal fell. All right. And when Cristobal Colon, who the world ignorantly calls Christopher Columbus, sailed, all right, some of the first slaves were those black men, so-called black men, all right, that went into slavery. Not all of them, all right, but many of them did. And then they went to the islands and started snatching up the Tainos, who were just as brown as Mr. Gregory. All right, before the forced integration through rape, robbery, murder, and slavery, because they got put right into slavery. Were put on slave ships and transported all be back and forth between the islands to Africa and to Europe. Seville, Spain became the reverse slave capital of the world. Many so-called Mexicans and Native Americans went into slavery over there. And there's historical documented, it's documented historically in many books. They just don't like to bring those books out. Written in the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. It's not a part of the curriculum, but it's true. Let's go to this Red Summer now, all right? Because remember, when Jake was separated, they built up all these little cities. Because you got to remember, Jake was forced to do all the work during the time of slavery, so they knew how to build. They knew plumbing. They knew how to harvest crops, take care of animals. They knew all that. So when they separated and they got a little land, Jake did wonders, man, because now all that work they were doing for themselves. All right? You can get an acre of land, get a couple families on it, and they would get some animals and some gardens get going, and then they would acquire another acre and a couple more families. The next thing you know, you had all these thriving little towns all across America, and Jake was doing well. Families were together. Wasn't no baby daddies, no baby mamas, no gang banging. All right? Until the so-called white man came in and took over those places, destroyed them, burned them to the ground, confiscated the land, the buildings, the banks, the bank accounts. All right? Which means that all the city government was involved. The police, the sheriffs, the mayors, the lawyers. Jake would get beat down, burned out, come back to try to claim their land, and it was a white family living on their land or in their house. Yeah.
I'm Clint Smith, and this is Crash Course Black American History. It's no secret that America's history regarding the treatment of Black Americans is filled with violence. And when we tell the story of Black history, one has to strike a balance. We have to be honest about the extent to which interpersonal and state-sponsored violence has shaped so much of the Black experience in this country without
state-sponsored, just as I said. All right? You can clearly see that one of these ladies here has that Edomite, actually, two of them have that Edomite influence in their blood, who were being raped, robbed, and murdered. Still don't mean she's not an Israelite. She could be a tear too, these two on the end here. But it's just evidence in their appearance. You can see the difference in their hair, hers as well. All right, you can see the woolly hair. All right, hers look like it's kind of wavy and curly, but hers is straight. Hers is practically straight, so is hers. All right, but you could also see that, and that was probably through what happened to their foreparents. That's why they look the way that they look.
falling into the trap of suggesting that Black American life is singularly defined by that violence. And it can be hard. A lot of the episodes that we've done have been talking about the horrific things that Black people have been subjected to.
Which proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they're the Israelites of the Bible. Because you got a group of people who try to use one incident that if you talk about it, you'll get hit with hate speech. So I'm not even going to mention it. And try to equate that experience to 500 years of rape, robbery, murder, land theft, slavery, and chains. All right? When they were never put in yokes of irons and traded and sold around the world. All right? Never happened to them. Never happened to them. Well, all their organizations, every time they tried to stand up and do something for themselves, they were infiltrated, and then brought down, like the Black Panthers. All right, the Black Panthers were my whole life growing up as a kid, I would hear that word and I hear talk about the Black Panthers, and I thought they were just some bad people or something. You know, that's what I thought as a small child when I would hear about it. But the media would talk about them as such. But it turns out that the Black Panthers were just trying to stand up for their people and the rights of their people, and do the opposite of what the KKK was doing. Arm themselves so that they wouldn't have their houses burned, their churches burned, their schools burned. They wouldn't just have truckloads of Edomites ride into their neighborhoods, beat them down, hang them, snatch up a couple girls, take them to the Forest Preserve and gang rape them and all that sort of thing. Because that was happening. It's true. This is why they don't want this history talked about. They want to sweep it under the rug like it never happened, that they didn't have a unfair state-sponsored advantages where they were able to get property, stolen property, all right, in some cases, and then create generational wealth when the first 40 years for their families, when the first 40 years of operation of the Federal Housing Authority, it operated in a whites-only, mode. The white soldiers could come home from World War II and able to get home loans and things of that nature, and the black soldiers, they couldn't do it. Neither could the so-called, Hispanic soldiers. All right? So it truly was state-sponsored violence. And every time that Jake tried to stand up for themselves, like I said, those organizations would be infiltrated and destroyed, and that's because they were trying to come up some other way. The only way is through the straight gate, and the only way is through Yahweh Bash and Shai, which is why we go out on the highways and byways to try to teach and guide our people to that. Let me play this one last clip with Sammy Davis.
Why do you feel there's a group of brothers and sisters who don't like you?
Because there was a whole bunch of brothers and sisters that didn't like Jesus Christ. That's why. And ain't nobody ever been put on this earth that everybody liked. They done killed Martin Luther King, and the only thing he kept singing was, "We shall overcome in love and peace." Killed him, wiped him out. Killed Malcolm. Wiped out everybody, man. Don't you understand? And some cat hired 3 black cats to wipe out the man who was the martyr of our time. And when they killed him, he had half a church full of people. It wasn't like it was packed and jammed, because already he was losing. And he says it himself, if you read his works, that there's a whole bunch of niggas that don't like me. Black folks like me, but not the niggas. Which is true. And 3 niggas knocked him off. Paid by white establishment. That's my feeling, and I will feel this as long as I live.
Well, his feeling was true. There was state-sponsored violence against him because he was becoming too powerful. The rumors is that he had. Well, I actually saw the imagery, the pictures. He actually did have a meeting with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said that he had made a mistake, and what I believe is that Martin was about to go the Malcolm route, and they were afraid of that. They lost control over Martin. Martin felt guilty for what he had done, all right, because, what was left of Jake after the destruction, after the Red Summer, there were still small little minute places where Jake was doing okay or doing better, all right, and then and what was left of that was destroyed when they integrated, because now Jake was going to the white neighborhoods and going downtown to spend their money in those little pockets that were left that were doing okay. They fell through because the money was no longer being spent in their own neighborhoods. All right, so that was that policy. Matter of fact, let me grab that couple more scriptures and we'll wrap this up. I want that Daniel, I think it's 8:25, and it reads, "And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hands." So his policy of peace brings desolation to everyone else. All right. And then this is Baruch. And this is the reason why our people weren't prospering, because they weren't coming back to the Lord. All right. And this is, and now that's happening. And Esau's trying to shut it down and stop it yet again. Why? Because he's losing control of the narrative, because the light is being shined on all this negative history that he, all these wrong things that he did to get to the place that he is, and hide behind the lie that he did hard work and all that bullshit. But this is Baruch 2:30. It says, "For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves." All right, I'm gonna jump down to verse 35. "And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, to be their power, and they shall be my people. And I will no more drive my people out of Israel, out of the land that I have given them." And this is what they're afraid of, the Lord reestablishing that second covenant with us and putting us back in control, because Esau, Edom, knows that his time is short. So with that, I'm going to say Shalom, Abba Ball.